Hey everyone, thanks for being here. My name is Alice Jasper, and I am the program director with People First Economy. So People First Economy, we have been around for, in some iteration or another, for 21 years now. We started as a local first membership organization and have sort of grown a number of our other programs from there. We have our Local First West Michigan program, which serves, I believe, 8 counties in the West Michigan region. We have our Good for Michigan program, which is a statewide program, and I'll get into that more in a little bit. And then we have our People First Impact Project or People First Policy Program. And this is a newer program that basically allows us to support businesses, particularly small businesses, in making sure that they have all of the information and opportunities to really just speak into policy that will and legislation that would affect their ability to operate successful small and sustainable businesses. So we really believe that vibrant communities thrive when folks put people first, and the communities we work with are made up of combinations of locally owned businesses, companies who believe that good business matters, mission-driven nonprofit organizations, and we bring together all of these values-aligned stakeholders, folks who share a common goal to create a thriving, equitable, sustainable, and economically vibrant region. So through that work, our Good for Michigan program was launched towards the end or in about 6 years ago now, 2018, in August of 2018. And really, this program is designed to support companies who are looking to have positive, measurable impacts on people and planet. So the three pillars of the Good for Michigan program, and really how People First Economy defines sustainability, because it can be defined in, depending on the context, in different ways. But our, kind of working definition of sustainability includes these three main pillars of stakeholder governance, where people and planet are of equal or higher value than short-term profits, And in this kind of approach to economic development, businesses that help all communities heal and thrive are rewarded. So it's really building a stakeholder-centered economy, or sometimes what we call a solidarity economy. Racial equity is another one of the pillars that we focus on, and looking at, the fact that true racial justice requires listening and learning, and doing the work to dismantle unjust policies, practices, systems, institutions, and building more just businesses and organization models. And showing up as imperfect partners and embracing vulnerability with bravery and humility and compassion. And last but certainly not least of these pillars is climate justice. And we all need our planet to survive and to thrive. And the planet does depend on humanity. So really working to support businesses in the work of being good stewards of our natural resources, and also advocating for justice in the environmental space. So this kind of breaks down some of the ways that we're able to support businesses in measuring and improving their sustainability, looking at environmental impacts like environmental justice, carbon offset, water and land protection practices, looking at community impacts, so what businesses are doing around charitable giving, community investment, their supply chain, looking at their impacts on workforce, how they are taking care of their employees. We have a program that supports companies with implementing worker-owned models, looking at hiring practices, inclusion in the workplace, and so on. And then stakeholder governance, which really focuses on how a business is practicing accountability and transparency and company ethics. So as the Good for Michigan program, and really People First Economy more broadly, we have been partners with the B Corp certification movement, for those of you that are familiar. And really many years ago, B Corp and Amoeba and a lot of the kind of local business alliances came about from a lot of the same people and a lot of the same networks in trying to build a more economically just ecosystem. So B Corp certification is a way for folks to really measure and improve their sustainability impacts, and I'll dive into that more in just a moment. But some of the kind of global and national programs that are integral to Good for Michigan are our work with the B Corp movement, as well as working with the United Nations Global Compact. So the United Nations Global Compact is the world's largest corporate sustainability initiative. And it's really a call to companies to align their strategies and operations with universal principles on human rights, labor, environment, anti-corruption, and work to take actions towards societal goals. And they created what they call the Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs, and they're 17 interlinked global goals designed to sort of be this blueprint to achieve a better and more sustainable future for all. The other sustainability movement that is also closely tied in with the UN Global Compact and the SDGs is B Corp certification and that movement. For those of you unfamiliar, B Corp certification is a third-party certification process. It is the world's leading sustainability assessment or a certification and assessment for really holistic sustainability practices. So using very similar definition of sustainability as I had just read off earlier. And essentially the nonprofit called B Lab comes in and does like a really kind of rigorous audit after a company takes a full assessment to make sure that all of the assessment responses are in keeping with their actual practices, policies, and so on. And then a company is certified for 3 years and then has to recertify every 3 years to keep their B Corp certification. So Arick had mentioned being owner of Last Mile Cafe, Last Mile, and being a B Corp. They are one of our part of our Michigan B Corp community and a small business here in the area. And yeah, I'll definitely be tapping Arick to talk about that a little bit more. But it's a global movement of businesses that are really trying to use the practice of business as a force for good. I will also say that my cat Daisy will likely be popping in here. So just so you know, I apologize if she's a distraction, but if I don't entertain her here, then she will start to knock things over in another room. So yeah, just letting you know that little disclaimer. For companies to become B Corp certified, they have to take what's called the B Impact Assessment, or the BIA, which is a digital tool that can help to measure, manage, and improve positive impact performance in 5 categories: environment, communities, customers, suppliers, and customers, as well as their employees and their shareholders and stakeholders. So here you'll see the 5 categories that companies have to engage with that to measure their performance. And if they get a score of 80 points or higher, then they are eligible to go through the next stage of verification, or essentially the audit, to become certified. So the reason that I'm talking about some of these assessment tools is because they are both the SDGs and the BIA are integral to our program and how we work to build that into our awards, the awards that we provide for our Good for Michigan program participants. I'll also cite that our organization is the partner for B Lab and the B Corp movement for the state of Michigan. So not unlike kind of this group of folks working around independent business alliances, B locals are sort of similar in that it reflects different business owners from B Corps, as well as other stakeholders in B Corp movement and economic development, really working to support the growth and evolution of what this work looks like. and kind of working collaboratively, sharing best practices from around the US and Canada with one another, so that we can really kind of lean on each other and have not just our own place-based communities, but really a national and international community of support to kind of scale this work. So for Good for Michigan, the ways that we're kind of building out and working to incorporate some of these tools that are being used globally is through our Good for Michigan campaign. So we certainly support companies in becoming B Corp certified, but we like to say it's not B Corp or bust. Both the assessment tools that I mentioned are free for any company to use anywhere at any time. But we have a license to kind of access some of the back-end data with consent of the businesses taking it, which allows us to support them, provide more in-depth consultation and technical assistance support to those companies. So we can provide them with an impact report, help them to identify what their goals for social and environmental sustainability improvement might be, help to connect them with resources to meet those goals, and also help them identify where there's opportunities to celebrate things that they may already be doing that are really going above and beyond what other businesses in their similar size and sectors might be doing. So this is sort of a very brief snapshot of what our program looks like. It has grown since this graphic was made. But really, for a company to be a part of our Good for Michigan campaign, they have to take either the SDG baseline, which is about a 30-question assessment looking at their sustainability practices, or 25% of the B impact assessment, which amounts to about 30 questions or so as well. And then they are part of the Good for Michigan campaign for the next 2 years. So the way that basically we're able to provide, some amenities and some reward for these companies, some of the things that we provide in addition to the technical assistance services are our Good for Michigan awards, which I will start diving into in just a moment. We also have a directory that is utilized by both our local first members and our Good for Michigan members. We have a number of businesses who participate in both of these programs. And it allows for companies to just be a little bit more reachable for whether they are, a B2B or B2C. This allows for folks to really search and engage and be able to filter based on location, maybe demographic of ownership, industry, so on and so forth. So the Good for Michigan Awards are a really big part of kind of the incentives for getting folks to engage in these assessments and start thinking about ways that they can measure and improve their social and environmental impacts. The awards are really designed so that, we have all of these businesses, a couple hundred businesses right now, where we then each year we look at all of the data that we see from the businesses who have engaged in the assessment. And we want to make sure that we are celebrating the steps that they are taking to, be good for Michigan. These are businesses who are performing in governance, in environmental stewardship, in how they serve their community and how they support their workforce. And so essentially we work to have these awards so that we can really celebrate companies with where they're at, because we know that especially in serving a lot of small businesses, there's not a lot of resources and support and bandwidth for small businesses to be able to implement and operationalize these types of practices. Sometimes it's just a day-to-day. You're just trying to keep your business open. So we want to make sure that we're celebrating, folks every step of the way for the work that they're doing to really kind of improve how they support people and planet. So for eligibility, for folks to be eligible for the Good for Michigan Awards, they just have to be part of our Good for Michigan campaign. So again, that means they've either completed 25% of the B impact assessment or the SDG baseline assessment within the past 2 years. And that's the pool of businesses that we look at when selecting award winners for the 4 categories each year. And again, what we do is we really kind of look at the aggregate data of all of these businesses, assessment performance in these different categories, and then work to kind of identify, who's really kind of going above and beyond in some of these practices. There's some, I guess, kind of qualitative component to it. It's not, meant to be a popularity contest or anything like that. But we want to make sure that that we have a representation of different industries, of different ownerships, and really making sure that this is a space where and highlighting businesses that are really being engaged with our programming, with other programs to, again, use their business as a force for good. But the primary factor that we look at in when we select award winners is that assessment data. So these are again the four categories that we focus on. The good for community, good for workforce, good for governance, and good for environment. And really just kind of looking at how different folks are showing up in these spaces, whether they are creating, really great community programs, whether they're doing a lot to offset their carbon footprint. Maybe they're looking at policy advocacy opportunities, looking at, ways to ensure that their workforce is taken care of. We look at all of these different metrics within the assessment to be able to determine who our winners are each year. So this is, we have in addition to our awards ceremony, we have what we call the Good for Michigan Awards spread. So this is a poll from last year that we put in Crane's business magazine, which I believe started in Detroit, but it's now kind of scaling throughout the Midwest region. It's one of the more kind of accessible business publications. In years past, we've worked with local business journals and other statewide business publications to make sure that we're highlighting all of our businesses, which, they're in smaller font here, but wanting to give a shout out to everybody who participates in the Good for Michigan campaign. And then really featuring these businesses that are that have excelled in these different areas. If this person looks familiar, that is because their name is Arick and they're on the call. And so, like I said, in a little bit, I will tap Arick to kind of share because Arick is not only works for us with the Good for Michigan program, but has in the past won one of our awards. And so I think can speak to kind of the value from the business perspective of what these awards can provide. But this is, one of the ways that we're able to really help support the companies that are doing these things. Many times, something we hear from businesses is they don't know or have the resources or capacity to tell their story about the really great things that they're doing. So this is a really great way to kind of support them in that storytelling work, so that as we see a growing consumer base of folks who are interested in supporting businesses who are, engage in ethical practices, this is something that they can kind of utilize to pull in, consumers that they or customers that they're hoping to find, potential talent for their teams and so on and so forth. So the way that it started is, in 2019, we had our first official Good for Michigan Awards ceremony. But I had mentioned earlier that Local First was sort of the program that started People First Economy 21 years ago. And so when we started the Good for Michigan program, which is intended to be statewide, it meant that we were engaging with a lot of our existing networks in this West Michigan region and not statewide. So a lot of the vast majority of our Good for Michigan participants and award winners in 2019 were still based, within 20 to 30 minutes of Grand Rapids, where we live and where we're headquartered. So it was a little bit easier then in that sense to kind of gather community together to celebrate this event. But we were able to bring, we have the mayor here, and a number of other folks to kind of celebrate, build community with each other, and yeah, just kind of give them their flowers, so to speak. But then we know that 2020 came in and just, said to heck with your plans. So we had to kind of pivot. So in this first, in the first year of the pandemic, we still allocated a good chunk of our annual budget for the Good for Michigan Awards into this Good for Michigan spread, which was at the time called My Biz, and has now been absorbed into Cranes. And this was really designed to, we still were doing honorable mentions. We scaled that back over the years. But everybody, I think at that time was starting to was still learning how to get comfortable with utilizing Zoom and all of the remote tools that we've since been using. And we didn't really know yet how to best kind of pivot from having an award ceremony. So we did something really just a recording through Zoom that we then shared on our social media platforms, shared with the award winners for them to share in any of their social media if they wanted to, um, and kind of just did a loosely unscripted celebration of each business that had won that year. Because even if we couldn't have a big award ceremony, we still wanted to make sure that we were honoring the businesses for all the work that they were doing. 2021 and 2022, we continued to do the spread, which still seems to have a lot of value to the businesses who win and participate in the Good for Michigan program. We used to do our Good for Michigan awards in May. We do them in October now, but that's why there's the kind of Star Wars nerd reference here. We do something for May the 4th for good be with you every year, even if it doesn't line up with our Good for Michigan awards ceremony. But what we had done was kind of reallocate the budget for having an awards ceremony to do a higher production than a Zoom call. Recording and announce all of the winners. So each winner had their own kind of video that we made that was nicely kind of produced and put together. And again, wanting to just create as many opportunities as we could with the resources that we had to celebrate the businesses that were participating in our programs and really going above and beyond in their work. Last year was the first year that we brought community back together again. So we had an award ceremony at Bell's Brewery. And we were able to bring back kind of doing the hard awards, the actual tangible plaque, bringing folks together to celebrate. We had, live music. And then we also had our communications director do kind of interviews with each of the award winners to put out on our social media so that that could be shared by each business that had won the award, and kind of just hear their story on why they use business as a force for good, and what the award meant to them. This year, we are getting ready to host our 2024 Good for Michigan Awards. Our deadline for folks to either become part of the Good for Michigan campaign or re-up on their Good for Michigan work, meaning that they had expired after that 2 years, was July 15th. And now we're working to start looking at that data again so that we can select our 4 award winners. But some of the things that have changed in the last few years is that, as right around 2020, as the pandemic was starting, we really started to see a lot of that statewide growth. And so in those first couple years, there was, the glass half full, I guess part of it was that it was a little bit easier to celebrate businesses from around the state, as opposed to bringing people together from everywhere from the Upper Peninsula, which can be from 7 to 10 hours away, to the east side of the state, a couple hours away. And last year was the first year we had to really start thinking about how do we bring people together, knowing that it's not just going to be, a 20 or 30-minute drive for some of them. Some of them are going to be coming in quite a distance if we invite them, especially for the award winners. But on the other hand, we also hear from a lot of Good for Michigan businesses that we work with that they really crave this community space. Some of them feel like they're kind of on an island in caring about the ways that in the ways that they practice business ethically and values aligned. and it's really helpful that for them to be in communities of practice. And so there's value in bringing people together. And while that can be achieved to some extent virtually, it's, it's always, I think, can be a lot, that experience can be a lot richer. The community building can be a lot richer when folks have a chance to really connect in person, and just have sort of organic, unstructured conversations. So we're trying to think this year. We were able to bring in a number of folks last year, and all of the award winners were able to come and attend and join us. Some of them traveled from like Traverse City and other parts of the state. But this year we want to make sure that we're doing something that is accessible and impactful for our businesses. So in looking at the ways that our program has grown during sort of this virtual era, and thinking about how we have also grown as an organization to be really statewide, to go from a West Michigan region to a statewide serving organization. We're still kind of in the process of thinking through how we can be most supportive to businesses, particularly the award owner or the award winners, because we would really love to have them join us in person for this celebration. So some of the questions we're asking is, what are the most meaningful and accessible ways to gather our community? And then we also are looking at the Good for Michigan spread that we've done every year and wanting to reevaluate, just is this the best? Not again, because there are some folks who don't really have Get Cranes, for example, or some of the other business publications that we've leaned on in the past few years. So if we have a business that's, 10 hours away, and they don't really read Cranes, or Cranes isn't really distributed up there, what types of publications would be meaningful for them to be featured in? So we're looking at kind of the resources and budget that we currently have allocated for our annual Good for Michigan spread. And we're just trying to make sure that we're aligning it with what will be the most meaningful for businesses to help them tell their story and celebrate the work that they're doing. And that's a conversation that we're going to be having with our marketing team actually next week to sort of solidify what direction we'll be taking. And then as we are growing, wanting to make sure that the Good for Michigan Awards continue to serve as really one of the leading incentives for program participation. We work with a lot of businesses, like I said, that are smaller. Some feel like they don't really get acknowledged for all the amazing things that they're doing. We work with businesses that are, newer and kind of have opened not too long ago and really want the opportunity to kind of be celebrated and are looking for some of those optics opportunities. So making sure that, again, with the resources that we have to celebrate businesses, what is the best use of those? And so I will, before kind of turning it over to questions from y'all, I just wanted to open it up to Arick as well to share any reflections who, as somebody who's both worked on the inside of it, and also been, really got connected with our organization as a business owner to begin with, and has been celebrated through this platform.
Yeah, I'll just kind of weave all of those experiences together. I got involved with People First Economy originally through the Good for Michigan program. I was aware of the Local First program as well, but really wanted to find those opportunities to be around other business owners that have similarly aligned values. And then really started to get interested in the B Corp route to validate some of the work that we were doing. Because a lot of time as business owners, we have these ideas and think they're good ideas. And it's always nice when you can find a third party that's like, if you're interested in sustainability, here's how you can like validate and quantify some of those things. And sustainability through the lens of, how you're engaging with your community, how you're engaging with your workforce, and in addition to the environmental sustainability. And when we did win the Good for Michigan Award, it was super cool. I think part of me was shocked a little bit because I thought we were going to win for sustainability because we do so much work for sustainability. We literally have our employees like sort our trash into like 5 different streams. So it's like, I just like, oh, we won an award. I'm sure it's for sustainability, but it was actually for workforce. And it was great for us to be recognized for something that we thought was kind of obvious, which is how do we treat our employees? How do we empower those people to go out into community and be more than just, people that work at Last Mile Cafe. So it was great to be honored for that. And after learning a bit more about the process, I think it's one of the greatest awards that we've ever received because it is rooted very much in the data of how your business is performing. So Alex already talked about some of this, but just seeing the process was really just ranked on like, here is where your business scored in these categories. Here are the opportunities you have to earn points. And just seeing that, like, that process was not like, trying to pick like who's your favorite company or that sort of thing. It was really rooted in the data. I think that's extremely powerful. And interacting with some of the other winners, like I see Cafe Ricos and that picture that's on your screen now, like they had a really great mission that drives their company as well. So I think for me, the greatest part is just being in this community and having access to some of these other business owners that share values and then finding ways to work together and collaborate. And then the promotion part has been great too, because people come to us now and see that like, oh, you have this award. We actually have it in the cafe. It's like there's an award right up front where it's like for workforce. And I imagine that that's helping us, as we continue to hire great people and have great experience with their employees. So I could ramble all day about this stuff. I hope I hit some of the key points, but yeah, definitely interested in answering any questions you all have as well.
Thanks, Arick. I definitely agree. I think that we've been really lucky to have some awesome businesses. And I think it's also been a really great way for us to build closer relationships with businesses. I think it's also contributed to our ability to scale the program statewide because if we're now celebrating folks from, 7 hours away, they might have engaged with our program a little, but maybe not thought about it again. And this was sort of a way to like call them back in and have them, also share more about what our organization is. So yeah, we're proud of what's been going on with it so far and looking forward to seeing kind of where it goes from here. And yeah, with that, I'm happy to take any Arick or I are happy to take any questions that you might have moving forward.
Yeah, feel free to unmute yourself because, like I said, we do have a small group, or you can put your question in the chat and I'm happy to ask it for you. I am curious. Well, I'll make sure no one is unmuting before I start talking. Okay. I'm just curious if you've come across any other groups that are using the B Corp and the United Nations country. Is that a model you're seeing other states use in the B Corp movement? Because it's makes a whole lot of sense the way you framed it, and I've never heard of that before.
Yeah, it is actually. We were a part of a group of or network of folks from different parts of the country who initially were using this model to kind of get more folks into the B Corp pipeline. But we knew our organization, we knew that it couldn't be just B Corp. We didn't want it to just be B Corp. We want to celebrate businesses who are doing this work, and B Corp isn't always the best fit for every business. Not every business is ready for it. Not every business wants to do it. They can still do great things. So we're I think one of the few or one of the only remaining organizations that has been able to continue to grow this program and have this award ceremony. Like I said, the assessment tools are free for everyone to use. We pay for a license to be able to get that data from B Lab. But there are there's the licenses available to be purchased from B Lab, and there's a number of other organizations that have done some iteration of this where they're utilizing this data to celebrate folks. So
do you notice there's some gaps in the types of industries that can use these two models? Like, are restaurants able to, I mean, I know coffee is, but manufacturing.
Yeah, the one of the reasons that we are such big cheerleaders of the SDGs and the BIA, they are both of these assessments have actually been B Lab, the nonprofit that runs B Corp, worked to create a interactive version of the Sustainable Development Goals. So they're both hosted on the same platform, and the data sets are the same. But one of the reasons that we are such big cheerleaders of it is because these are world's really two leading assessments in not just measuring a holistic definition of sustainability, meaning people and planet, but also as far as like really span industries across all industries across the board. So they are kind of tailored. There's over 70 tracks on the assessment. So when a company fills out their industry, the size they have, how many employees, the assessment will automatically put them on a track that best matches what their opportunities for impact would be. So, in other words, Arick in Last Mile Cafe is going to have a slightly different assessment experience than Patagonia, for example, might, who is a B Corp, or Tofurkey. So we have everything from, small restaurants, breweries, coffee shops. We've got, there's a lot of independent consultants, and up all the way up until like Danone yogurt and the Danone corporation, Ben and Jerry's ice cream. It really kind of scales across industry, size, sector, which is why we really believe in these assessment tools, because they are really applicable for so many different types of folks.
Well, thanks. Leslie, Grace, Susan, Marie. How do you guys fund this program?
Yeah. So
Thanks.
our Good for Michigan program is mostly funded through grants. And then we also we do like cohort models and things like that as well, where we'll bring together a group of a small community of businesses and provide kind of a curriculum and more in-depth support. So through sort of this consulting model that we've built out, in addition to our grants, that's largely how the program has been able to grow the way that it has, especially because we do primarily serve, like I said, a lot of small businesses that have already a lot of barriers to just trying to keep open, let alone add on all of these things. We really try to work with other economic development organizations like the Michigan Economic Development Corporation. Sometimes we'll work with more community specific orgs like, DDAs, community foundations. We've worked with the Michigan Office of Outdoor Recreation Industry to do some focus specifically on Michigan's outdoor rec industry. We do some work with a child care economic development organization. So partnering with these organizations where they can help to offset the cost for companies to engage in and receive these services has been a really helpful model for us, because that way we're able to keep supporting the businesses, knowing that we can't always rely on businesses to pay directly. If so, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, that's great. I know some people have other meetings, so I'll just see if anyone has any last questions, and then we'll wrap it up for the day.
And I can throw my email in the chat in case anybody has any questions, anything pops up after we hang up.
Great. Super. Well, thank you all for being here. Feel free to reach out to me as well if you have other questions, and I can relay them to People First Economy, or if you think this is something that, might be worth collaborating on a larger scale with other organizations. I'd love to talk more about that. But yeah, just again, thanks so much for being here, and you guys just setting this high bar for us.
Absolutely. Happy to help if anybody has questions. I had to start from the bottom or just start from scratch as well. So definitely know what it feels like to kind of build the plane as you're flying it.
Yes.
So yeah, always happy to support. So thanks so much for having us.
Great. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.